Okay, thank you. Right, so I just wanted to start with the structure of WMUK. So WMUK has a board of trustees. At present, there's 7 trustees on that board, 4 of which are living with WM. We've had a change of chair quite recently, so some of you will know Will Franks. Will did a brilliant job of steering us through the phase of becoming a established registered charity. And just a little bit of background for those that aren't aware, WMUK was set up initially by a WM patient with his consultant. So that was Roger Brown and Shirley Desar, and it started off very much on a volunteer basis. In 2019, the decision was made to make it a registered charity and to put a board of trustees and proper governance in place and start to take fundraising and support services and you know, have a plan. Oh, sorry, Louisa.
Sorry.
So Will has now stepped down and we have Nina Pinwell as chair, and Nina is the head of the Cancer Drugs Fund, so brings a huge amount of experience to the organisation and was previously a trustee. So you have a board of trustees, 7 people. You will also have a clinical advisory board. So we used to have a lot of clinicians that sat on the board of WMUK as trustees, but we just ended up with too many and it made the board not very workable. So all the clinicians have moved into the CAB, as we call it. There's about 15 of them on there now. You will know a lot of them. It's the familiar names and faces: Shirley, Roger, Dima, Guy Pratt, Helen, to name a few. And it also has some clinical nurses in there. And it also has people from associated specialisms like neuropathy, so they can advise us around associated conditions. So that board is there to make sure that all the information that we put out is clinically correct, that it's up to date, and to also, I think, feedback on best clinical practice or where there might be gaps in practice that we might need to look into from a research perspective. So that's CAB. You've then got WMUK, which is the charity as you will know it, which is there to very much deliver our support services and to raise funds to be able to do that. So everything that you see, from webinars to support groups to, well, Alison's going to run through all these, so I don't want to steal her thunder, but our whole range of support programs sits within WMUK. And there's myself, there's Alison, there's Kat, there's Louisa, and we also have a trust and grants fundraiser, also called Jane, who specifically applies to trust and grants to raise money, which is quite a new thing for us at WMUK. But she's been successful in raising over £70,000 so far. So that's a revenue stream that's really important to us. Most of you will probably be familiar with the Rory Morrison registry. That now sits in a separate limited trading company that is wholly owned by WMUK. And that allows us to really achieve a fair price for the data services that we sell through the registry. So the registry is just really a big, think of it as a big spreadsheet of information, clinical information on WM patients, some quality of life information for those of you that fill in PROMs, and then we want to add extra data to that. And I'm going to talk to you more about why that whole bit of what we're doing is really important further on. But just so you understand who WMUK are when we talk about ourselves, it's the board, the CAB, the charity, the registry, and around the registry, you'll also see we have a registry manager and we have a governance committee and a research committee. All of this information you can find on our website on the About Us page. What I would just say on the 2 committees, governance and research, is we attracted some of the best brains out there in their fields and are now asking them to apply that expertise to WM. So those committees have patient representatives on them. So every bit of governance stage of the organisation you see has someone living with WM on it. And then what we've tried to put around that is the best brains out there. Thanks, Louisa. Next slide. Okay, so as an organisation, we're out to solve a problem, I guess. And ultimately, by solving that problem, we want to improve outcomes for WM patients and to make your experience of living with WM the best it can be, in that you feel well informed, in that you feel empowered, that you can have the right conversations with your medical team, that you have access to treatments, and ultimately that we try and increase the range of treatment options that you have. And if we understand how all that works best, we actually improve patient outcomes. So that's what we're here for. But the problem really is that this is a massively underinvested cancer with limited treatment options. We still have the issue that most WM patients aren't given WM specific information on diagnosis, and they're not signposted to WMUK. Now, it's great that you are at least, I think, aware of or signposted to the bigger blood cancer charities like Blood Cancer UK, maybe Lymphoma Action, maybe Myeloma. And it's a great thing to have a range of information out there. But I guess the one organisation that is all about WM is us. So it's our ambition that on diagnosis, patients are both given WM information and signposted to us. Next slide, Louisa. So on our About Us page on the website, you'll also kind of see a one-page of our strategy. And that really is just a summary of our plan. So as an organisation, we're still quite small. We have to focus what resource and money we have really well. So the board, alongside myself, work out, if you like, the plan and where we're going to focus and where we're going to prioritise and how we're going to do that. And where we ended up was a process of where have we been, reaching out to you, the patient community, to understand what your priorities were and to take on board the expertise that all our trustees bring to the organisation. So we want an engaged and empowered community. It's really important to us that we build this community of WM experts. That's whether they're patients, family members, friends, but all really well informed, who can all support each other. As an organisation, we want to be the go-to place on WM. So not just also for patients, but for different stakeholders, for pharma companies, for researchers, for NICE, for people who are going to develop drugs, approve drugs. If you want to understand about WM and have the best data on it, then you come to us. And also, if we're the expert voice, we can advocate, which means like we can shout out for you guys really, and we can try and influence change and influence the right decision makers and be having the right conversations. So we're all about putting WM on the blood cancer agenda. The data I'm going to talk about later, so let's skip through that, Louisa. Just wanted to give you a snapshot of where we've been and where we are. So I joined in 2021. Income was around about 120,000. You can see it's increased, and you'll see there's a white bar and a yellow bar. The yellow bar is WMUK, the charity. So where do we get money from as a charity? We get money from people doing challenge events. We get money from people doing their own events. We get money from people who leave us money in MEM. We get money from people who just make donations to us on a one-off basis. We get money from people who make donations to us on a regular basis, i.e. they sign up and give monthly. And then we might get the odd corporate donation, but we don't get a lot of that. So really, our income as a charity is very reliant on you as a community. We don't have any government money. We don't have any statutory money. We don't have any money that just walks through the door. We're totally reliant on you as a community to be able to deliver the services that we do. What the registry allows us to do, as well as being there to improve patient outcomes, is by having really good WM data, which is of value to pharma companies and other stakeholders, because they need that for research, for new treatment options. We can sell that data at a fair market price, and that allows us to generate revenue, and that revenue is then reinvested into the charity. So as you can see, it's created quite a substantial opportunity for us to be able to do that. And our plan is to continue to do that, because it's really important that we create sustainable funding for the charity. You know, you're all aware of the environment we're in. We've seen lots of businesses that have gone bust. You know, there are charities that will go under as well. And the reason is they're reliant on donor income. They only have a couple of income streams. To us, it's really important we diversify our income streams, we make it sustainable, we make it long term. And, you know, I really would just say on this point, I think we have about 750 patients on our database, maybe a couple of hundred family, friends, carers. Out of that, I think 100 people give to us regularly each month. If just 250 of you gave us £10 a month regularly, every month, signed up as a regular giver, that means we'd hit our individual giving target for this year to be able to do what we need to do. So, you know, look, I'm not just here to shout for cash, but it's a really important part. £10 a month to us to be able to support you guys would make all the difference. Right, next slide, Louisa. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Alison now. Just quickly before I do, there's a point I forgot to make from that last slide. I've shown you the income, it's gone up significantly. When I joined WMUK, we spent less than £1,000 on support services. And we didn't really have a support services plan because we'd just become a registered charity and everything had been about putting that in place. What we've done over the last 2 years is develop a whole support program, but I'm going to let Alison talk you through now, which has really kind of been the brains of everybody that sits in this team and the board. And you know, obviously to pay thanks to Bob as well for the role that he played in developing that. But now, you know, this year we're probably going to spend about £200,000 on our support program. And not everything can be measured just in, I don't know, the pounds that you spend or the, you know, what that number looks like. But I want to give you a sense of how much we've developed in the last 2 years and how much that has grown. So Alison, I'm now going to hand over to you and let you talk through that part of our world.
Thank you. So yes, so I'm Alison and I am the support manager here at WMUK since I joined in August last year. So I'm a bit of background. So I'm a degree qualified nurse and have been for 9 years. And I've worked in both the NHS and the private sector. For the past 5 years, I've worked in oncology and also studied further modules in that area. Next slide, please, Louisa. So my role within WMUK kind of encompasses 3 main areas. So these are the support line, WMUK healthcare education, and also charity collaboration, which I'm going to go more into. Next slide, please, Louisa. So the support line and what it means for you. So the support line is the only WM specific support line that's run by a clinician in the world that we're aware of. And it came about through the feedback from the WM community that there was a real big gap in WM specific support. So we launched the support line back in November and it's continued to grow ever since. And it's a resource that is which allows you to be able to utilise my clinical experience, my WM knowledge, and be able to ask further questions, ask further advice. And I'm able to give you the most up-to-date information, as well as having the support of our clinical advisory board to be able to assist me with any questions that I might not know the answer to, or I might need a bit more of clarification on. It also allows me to help people understand the NHS and help to navigate it a bit better. As we all know, the NHS is an absolute minefield at the best of times, and that's coming from me, a registered nurse. So it gives me that chance to be able to really explain to people how the NHS works, how your clinical teams work, who your clinical teams are, what they do, and how you can utilise them. And that all plays into hopefully empowering people to get the most out of their appointments and to just feel better supported overall. The support line is also there, you know, if you ever wanted to give me a call, just to offload, to have a chat, just seek some support. It really is there for a bit of everything and anything really. Some statistics on the support line. So just in the past 2 months alone, we've had 82 contacts from 30 different people, and I've spent 8 hours on the phone giving WM specific advice. 83% of those callers were patients and 17% of those were family and friends. So it really is a line for anybody and everyone really. Next slide, please, Louisa. So the WMUK Healthcare Education. So this is something which I'm really excited about. So at the end of the month, we're going to start launching 8 nurse educational meetings around the UK, and that's to try and reach as many nurses as we can. And these nurse meetings are specifically going to focus on the nurse's role within WM care. So the whole reason of these educational days is to really educate nurses on the specific WM patient needs and how they may differ to other cancer patients. Because I feel that if we can educate nurses on those needs, they're going to feel better prepared and they're going to feel more comfortable to be able to provide that extra level of support and personalised care that's hopefully going to overall improve your patient outcomes and experiences. Next slide, please, Louisa. So charity collaboration. So this is something, again, which is really important, and it's something that WMUK have really worked hard on, and something that we've done throughout setting up all our support services. So reaching out to other charities is really important because it allows us to share and listen to their knowledge and experience, and take that on and learn from them and make sure that we continue to grow and become a sustainable charity that continues to provide effective support. Reaching out to other charities also means that we can raise awareness of WMUK on a much wider platform and hopefully reach WM patients that we may not have done before, so that they can access our services. But it also allows us to be able to learn more about other charities and their expertise and what they specialise in and how that can support our community as well. So many patients that come to me for support, I often refer them on to other charities that are going to support their holistic needs and better meet their needs as a whole. Just a statistic on that as well. So of those 82 contacts in the past 2 months, over a quarter of those contacts, I provided them with other charity resources and referred them on to make sure that they really had that full support. Next slide, please, Louisa. So the future. So we're working really hard to continue raising the awareness of WM within the healthcare setting. We would really love that every newly diagnosed patient is referred to WMUK. As I'm sure many of you can vouch, and from the feedback that I've had, is that on that initial diagnosis of WM, it can often feel quite isolating, quite scary, quite lonely. And what we want to do is make sure that we get to those patients sooner rather than later, so that they can receive that up-to-date factual information and tap into that WM specific support, which is invaluable to them. As well with that, broadening the healthcare education. So as well as the nurses study days, we're going to be launching an online nurses forum, which is where nurses from around the UK can start sharing experiences, sharing knowledge, asking questions, learning from each other. And that's really important, because that's going to help get that WM knowledge spread around the UK. And it's also going to give us an idea as to where healthcare professionals are lacking in their knowledge and experience, so that we can feed into that. And we're also going to keep implementing and building upon our patient support pathway. So that means really checking in with you guys, asking for feedback and suggestions on how we can improve, and making sure that we act upon those improvements to ensure that the support we provide is meeting your needs, because at the end of the day, that's essentially why we're here. Next slide, please, Louisa. So This diagram here just gives you a snapshot of our support pathway, which I know my colleague's going to go into a bit further detail as well shortly. So anybody who contacts WMUK for support, they'll come to myself. And these boxes here underneath the support manager box, that's just some of the more common topics as to why people would contact me, and the advice that I can, the subjects that I can advise on. And then underneath there is some of the more fine-tuned, the more personal support that we can offer and that we can refer on to. That makes it a more bespoke service that's that meets individual needs. And alongside that is the healthcare education. So all these concerns and views and worries that are brought up in these support queries, we can feed directly into healthcare education to ensure that WM patient needs are continuously represented. So I'm going to hand over to my colleague Kat now, who will explain her part of the world for you.
Thank you so much, Alison. So yeah, I'm Kat. I am the Information and Knowledge Manager at WMUK. I've been here almost 3 years, so it'll be 3 years this October. So I've really seen the organisation change for over those years, from somewhere quite small, and as Jane was saying, not spending a huge amount on support services, to growing through our support groups, our webinars, building out our website information, and now into what we're doing now and spending almost 200k on support, which is amazing. My background is working in small charities. So the last decade I've been working in very small charities, mostly in the cancer area. I spent 6 years at Sarcoma UK, which is a rare form of blood and soft tissue, bone and soft tissue cancer. And there I did a lot of fundraising, marketing, but as a small charity, kind of a bit of everything as well. So yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell. Next slide, please, Louisa. So yeah, this is a bit of my world. I work on the information. I work on those support services that Alison was just talking about, specifically the peer support elements of that, which is sort of supporting you to help yourselves. And a new area of the charity is managing on knowledge, which I'll go into a little bit more detail on what it actually means. So yeah, next slide, please. So what does information mean for you? Well, that is literally everything that you read that we produce. So that's booklets, fact sheets, everything that you see on our website, and then all the more accessible content. So webinars like tonight, the webinar like we're having tomorrow with Anthony Nolan, face-to-face meetings, and making that content as accessible as possible. So no matter who you are, where you are, you can get content that you can access. So this is going to be looking at things like putting widgets onto our website to make it more readable for those with sight impairments, putting subtitles onto our webinars, simple things like that make sure everyone can access it. And that really meets our goal to make sure every person with WM gets the information that they need at the point that they're diagnosed and throughout their journey with us. And it also helps like those of us like with family and friends who have WM, that they can help understand their diagnosis, how to care for that person best, how to support them in the best way possible. And all those things that Alison was talking about, that she helps on the support line, our information is aimed to make you empowered so you can navigate our healthcare system. You can have those really productive conversations with your healthcare professionals, and you can advocate for your care. Understanding how you can support yourself at home. If you're on active monitoring, for example, we have a whole section of that on our website, and we're always expanding it. Next slide, please, Louisa. So peer support, as I said, it's supporting you to help yourselves. So something that always comes out of our surveys and when we talk to people is that they really get a huge amount of hearing experiences from people who are living it. It's all well and good us speaking and us giving us information, but really you guys are telling us that you want to speak to people with a similar situation, whether that is they simply have WM or whether they are on a certain treatment or on active monitoring, a certain age group or gender, or live in a certain region. So this is where our peer support comes in. So we have our support groups who I work with. We've actually got a meeting tomorrow with all the support group leaders to talk about our future plans for those, how we're going to fund them and support those leaders into growing those groups. We also have a one-to-one support program that's in the making. So me and Alison are working on that one-to-one peer support that will basically become a buddy system, where we'll have volunteers offering support on a one-to-one basis with people in a similar situation. So again, it might be that I really want to speak to someone who is in their mid-50s in Birmingham. Okay, cool. Who's on our database that we can hook you up with? We have dedicated forums, and we're growing and expanding those, and the accessibility of those. And we are also going to be looking into growing a patient advisory group, because one of the really important things, as Jane said, we came from a patient, a patient grew WMUK. We've kept patients at the heart of everything we do. All our committees are driven by patients, and a patient advisory group would just keep patients right at the heart of the organisation. So all of these things are there to help reduce loneliness that people time and again tell us they have when they receive a diagnosis, and just getting that in person sometimes, but even if it's virtual, on Zoom like this, on the phone, that empathetic ear whenever you need it. And of course, just be a part of this really positive and thriving community. You only have to spend 2 seconds on our Facebook group to see what an amazing group of people it is that come together to support each other through thick and thin. So yeah, next slide, please. So what does knowledge mean for you? So I guess I need to explain what knowledge means, because it's quite an intangible concept. But knowledge is really what drives the organisation. What we know and what we can give to you guys and our other stakeholders, researchers, healthcare professionals, our trustees, policy influencers, all of that stuff, what we know means that we can expand and provide even more services for you guys. We can make sure that the organisation becomes a sustainable venture that's really attractive to funders, and then we can even provide even more stuff for you guys. So a lot of my role is around collecting data, collecting feedback, running surveys, monitoring and evaluating all our programs, and then just scanning the whole environment for new updates, innovations, research projects. I'm bringing that all together. So this is a really new thing for the organisation. I've literally just come back to mat leave into this role. So it's a really growing thing for us. So we want to get to a point where we are the expert in WM. We are the go-to source for any information on WM, and knowledge is how we do it. And for you guys, that basically means more money to do more support, more information, be there for you even more of the time, and get you the treatments and better care that you need and you're asking for. Next slide, please. So yeah, looking into the future, it's kind of just more of the same of what I've just talked about. It's creating that world-leading library of WM information, and we have put your feedback. This is where that knowledge and that reporting and evaluation comes into play, because what you're telling us then feeds straight back into our future. So you've told us that you want more information on treatment, for example, on side effects, and that's coming straight into the information that's going to be produced in the next year. We're looking at a treatment booklet, we're looking at a whole section on the website around clinical trials, and we're looking at doing a whole section and booklet on the related conditions and symptoms of WM, to really help you understand that. We don't want to be at a point where you don't feel like you need to scan the web and the internet trying to find reliable information on the next treatments that might come out, what your options are, clinical trials. We want to be one source that you can rely on, that you'll find that information for. And then, we want to make sure that we're keeping you at the heart of our community. So we're looking at that patient advisory board. So keep a lookout for that, because we will be asking for applications. So if you think that's something that you want to be involved in, if you feel like you could have a say in driving our strategy, feeding into our patient information production, and giving your opinion on certain aspects of our workings, then keep your eyes peeled, because we will be putting stuff out about that soon. An annual survey, so many of you might have seen the annual survey that went out back in April, I think it was, or maybe March. We'll continue to be doing that, and we'll continue to evaluate specific projects. And that's one way that you can really feed in. Those surveys, they might feel like, oh, it's just another survey. You're actually making a real difference. Those results that come out directly feed into our strategy. And then volunteer roles. So as I said, like, we're going to have our peer support one-to-one buddy system. That's going to be one way that as a patient you can volunteer and grow the community. And then very lastly, this might sound kind of boring, but it's actually really important. I'm going to be striving to get us the PIV tick on our information. The PIV tick is basically a accreditation for information, patient information. You have to go through quite a stringent process to get it. It basically is a mark that we can put on all our information to show that it is reliable, that it's accessible, it's information you can trust. And because of that, it becomes incredibly attractive to funders who are looking to fund organisations who produce information, which means that we'll be able to get more money to produce more information. So really boring, but really important. So yeah, I think that's my role, really. I'll pass on to Louisa.
Yeah, I'm just going to butt in just before you start, Louisa, just to get a bit of context to this is Alison works part-time, Kat works part-time, Louisa works part-time, I work full-time. It is a really small team. We obviously have someone else doing trusts and grants, and we have someone managing the registry I'll talk to you about in a bit. But I totally believe this organisation is here to serve you and is to meet your needs and is really to bring you all together, because I believe, like, together we're much stronger, and to amplify our voice, and is to get the issues that really matter. Well, is to get WM on the agenda, is B, to get awareness of WM out there, is to get people informed on it, and then the things that matter to you, to get those in front of the right people and to have those conversations. That is always at the heart of what we're trying to do. It's a really small team that's doing it. I really think these guys punch above their weight in what they're doing. And I would just say to you, there are lots of charitable organisations out there. Use them however you need to use them, for whatever information and support you want. But if you want to support a bit of an underdog who is trying to punch above its weight, who is totally focused on WM, please, I don't ask you to do it out of the goodness of your heart. I say to you, if we've provided something that's been of value to you, has been of use to you, if we have been of service to you, consider supporting us. If you want to pick up the phone, email, whatever, at any time, any one of us, myself included, and say, Jane, what are your plans at the moment? What are you actually doing? Why would I invest in you? Like, talk me through your numbers, tell me how I'm going to get value for money. Tell me how you're going to change patient outcomes. I'm always here to have that conversation. So it doesn't always have to be a webinar. I feel bad that we haven't done this. Actually, we probably should have done this a lot sooner to tell you everything that's going on. But I'm always here. So please always feel free to contact me. But I really wanted to say that because I've worked in quite a few charities. I've not worked in one this small that achieves this much, either both in terms of impact or finance. And, I'm hugely grateful for the team that I have around me. But honestly, I really think we're making real progress for you. And I would love that at the end of either this webinar or however you engage with us, you would feel the same. And if you don't feel the same, then just let us know, because all the time we sense to check in. Are we doing what you want? Is this what you need? Is this being delivered in the way you want it? So this is a two-way conversation constantly, because we're here to make things happen for you guys. So without further ado, I'm kind of set you up there, Louisa, to lead into fundraising and comms.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much to everyone so far. I'm Louisa. I'm the marketing and fundraising manager. I started with the charity about a year ago, just to cover Kat's maternity leave. And I kind of became part of the furniture, really. I love the organisation, the passion and everything about it. And I don't think people always get that just because we don't have WM, that we don't understand how hard it can be. And we really want to be able to kind of bring you all together as a family, as a community, but we are part of that family and community as well. It's one of the reasons I've got a daughter with a rare condition. It's nothing to do with WM, but I do understand that journey of being given a diagnosis, of what it's like to navigate health systems and really rare conditions and things like that, which I think can be an asset. My background is communications and working in media, but the NHS kind of has just become a really, really tough arena. Crossed into charity, and I've just loved the charity sector, so I'm really thrilled to be part of Jane's team here. I don't really know how to follow on from all of that amazing talk. I'm going to give it a good go. Basically, my role really is to support everything that's just been talked about. I support by communicating, by sending out emails and everything that we need to do. The fundraising, as Jane's touched on, and all of it is about building relationships and making sure that people know who we are, that we're a trusted, sustainable organisation. And that's whether it's to patients, to funders, to the healthcare professionals. So basically, what communications means for you, it means I said every piece of communication that you see, everything that Kat does and Alison does and Jane does is what I'm talking about. We share that, we disseminate that with newsletters, with social media, on forums, and with other organisations. And it means us keeping you informed with the latest updates in WM and the wider blood cancer community. It means that about us liaising with healthcare professionals and researchers just to help them better support the patients they serve as well. So by us taking information from you and talking about the surveys and information and feedback that we get from you, we can share that with that wider community and make sure they really understand your needs as well as empowering you. One of the biggest things we've done so far is the website and the rebrand, and we want to really keep developing and maintaining that strong brand. Sorry.
Louisa, just while you're having a sip of water, I haven't done a very good job as timekeeper. So it's just to let you know, if we can maybe do your bit within 5 minutes, because I really want to give everyone opportunity to cover all their questions and then plus talk a little bit about data.
Yeah, that's fine. So basically,
a bad timekeeper.
my role is to communicate everything that we're doing as a charity. It's to just shout about the patient needs, to shout about everything that we're achieving, but also to shout to the people that can give us money, the funders and the supporters and everyone like that. So what does fundraising mean for you? As Jane touched on earlier, this charity, it receives no other funding. The only funding we get is from supporters, regular giving, challenges, some trust and grants, one-off gifts, and those people that do the regular giving. What we're going to really focus on is growing the fundraising streams, funding streams. We're going to hopefully build on various things like our legacy giving and our regular giving programs. And as Jane touched on before, the most powerful way that you can really help us is by becoming a regular giver. For the price of a Starbucks a week or a month, you can really make a difference to us. we are really fortunate that some people have kind of increased their amounts, but just £5 or £10 a month would really, really make a difference. And if we can rely on that and project that sustainable funding, it really helps us. Okay. Right, so what relationships mean? Basically, strong relationships between everyone in the WM community are really important. We need you to trust us. We need you to talk to us. We need to build those relationships. That trust also has to carry across to the healthcare professionals and the people who make the policies, make the decisions about medications, treatments, and care pathways. So with your help, by you being part of that, we can really become a patient-centered organisation even more than we are now. We build our relationships through talking to you, through listening to you, at your feedback. We want to be your organisation. We want to continue to be your organisation as we have been already. Sorry.
That's okay. Shall we skip to some questions? And I'm just going to say here, right? We're all skilled at what we do. We're not all skilled at talking to a room full of people.
Really.
And fair play to Louisa for overcoming her fears and doing this and doing a great job. Yeah, but this doesn't come naturally to all of us. So I really applaud you, Louisa, for taking part in tonight. Thank you.
On top of 3 little people running around as well. So
that's all right. These are all people juggling families too. So right, let's move to some of the questions on the chat, because I really want to give, I'm going to start with those, and then if anyone has a question that's online, please just use the raise your hand function, and we'll take questions on that. And then I just want to do a quick piece around data and research so you understand what we're doing there. I'm just whizzing through the chat here. So the first one, Avril, around being able to give online. The only option I can see is by card. I've referred you to Louisa, but someone else has said, yes, absolutely, you can. So whoever's put that is more informed than me. Can you answer that question?
That was me. That was me. Yeah, you can absolutely do that. Just email us, either Louisa or the info account. That's absolutely fine. And we can send you the bank details.
Thanks, Kat. Alison, one for you. Liz put, how will you contact the nurses as, for example, my CNS deals with lymphomas too?
Yeah, so that's a really big piece of work that we're doing. So that came off the back of our latest patient survey, where we collected all the details about every CNS that's in touch with our patient community. And what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we're reaching out, we're sending leaflets and our contact details to every haematology centre that's been listed, or that we know has got a WM patient being treated there. And as well, that feeds into the nurse education days, sending out invites to different haematology departments, getting CNSs to come along and to know about our services. So that all kind of ties in with that. Thanks,
Alison. Okay, to what extent do we connect with Blood Cancer UK and IWMF? Alison's touched on Blood Cancer UK and very much around how we develop services, sharing best practice, etc., etc. Just to give you a little bit of the insight into the charity world, for example, right, 1, we need to reach more WM patients. 2, the best way we're going to do that and get information to you guys is through the hospitals. We have asked Macmillan repeatedly if they will put our WM information into their units that they have, their pop-ups as part of their literature. They've said no. Charities quite often can be protective about their own world. So we are having to try and cut through all of that to get to the hospitals, to get to the nursing staff. That's why we've taken the tactic we have, where Alison's leading an education programme and just through a lot of desk work, building up a whole database of clinical nurses. But, sometimes charities will help, sometimes they won't. Sometimes they'll go as far as they might share best practice, but might they put a link to you on their website that would direct blood cancer patients to WMUK? No, because they think that they might lose donors. You might not give to whatever that charity is now, you might give to the other one. So the reality of it is, and especially when you're a very small voice, is you don't carry a lot of power, you don't have an awful lot to negotiate with, but we keep knocking at those doors, and wherever we can, we do. IWMF. So I have really spent a lot of the first 2 years here very much inward looking, understanding our community, understanding what you need, understanding how big it is, understanding where the gaps are, understanding the opportunities, and putting, if you like, a plan and services and everything in place, and building a team and all those things, building an organization basically. Now we've got one, I have an opportunity to be much more outward looking and to focus a lot more on collaboration. So IWMF, I met in London last week. There's a whole range of areas where we do similar things, and some things they do really well and we're going to borrow, and some things we've done really well and they're going to borrow. So to answer your question simply around IWMF, we're going to work really, really closely together, particularly around, you'll see they have a European summit coming up in October in Amsterdam. We're actually going to move our summit so it's on the same day, so that we can live stream each other's summits and kind of give you double the content really. So IWMF, I think, have obviously streets ahead of us in terms of research and the income that they have, because they have about 23,000 people on their database, and they actually have some people who give them over £1 million a year. So they're doing great. That allows them to invest in a lot of research. We're still trying to build that. But I think what we do really, really well is our information and support services. So between us, we're kind of like, if you like, bouncing off each other's strengths. So absolutely working with IWMF. Joy, thank you for the suggestion around social prescribers. We will take a note of that, and someone will come back to you and follow up on that. Because again, anything that helps us make people aware of us. And again, you know, if people spot things, if people go, why aren't WMUK doing that, or that would be a good idea, at any time, please feel free to contact us, because, you know, there's only so much we can do, which kind of follows on to Sarah's points really, around Blood Cancer's LinkedIn campaign. Would love to understand more about that. And yes, you know, again, we're at the start of our journey now of shouting about ourselves and building all our media platforms and communicating and putting our key messages out, because quite frankly we've had to work out what they are. So we can now do that, and that's a real focus for us moving forward, is making sure that WMUK is positioned as that expert voice on WM. So good to hear about that, and that's a very generous comment around, Paul, your perception of the charity landscape, and you know, you're impressed with what we're doing, so thank you. That is absolutely the intention, and thanks for the comment around, means the world to hear that. Always goes without saying, we are here for you, and that's what we're about. When a new patient is diagnosed, could WM information be sent to their GP, as it is plain to us patients that GPs have very little knowledge of the disease? Well, there's a whole other can of worms, isn't it? So we've really focused on sort of the secondary stage, the hospital side of saying we haven't gone into primary care yet. And the reason we haven't gone into primary care is just that we recognise it's quite a challenge. And I go back to the limited resources bit, but we know that. Anyone has a really clever idea of how we do that, I'm up for listening. But I guess, you know, our tactic at the moment is to get our, well, here's a real starter for 10, right? You couldn't still draw a map in the UK of where all the WM patients are. And if you can't do that, how can you inform and influence services? Because you can't tell people where they are. We've developed that, and I would say we're now maybe, I don't know, 70% of the way of having it, but we still don't have a full map. So we're still on about basics here. Where are all the WM patients in the UK? Where are they treated? Do they just have their treatment there? Do they go to a secondary place where their treatment's overseen, or they might go and see a specialist? So we're still putting that together. And it's that kind of information. But going back to the point on the leaflet, is we try to, when we engage with you, say, where are you being treated? we know there's a WM patient at that hospital. We contact the nurses at that hospital and say, can we send you some leaflets because we know you have WM patients? And that's kind of what we've been doing. Okay, Liz, I'm going to come back to you on the messaging one. What date will the October Summit be? Kat, what date will the October Summit be?
It'll be the 21st, Saturday the 21st.
We will be communicating that. I'm just jumping the gun really and telling you, but that was off the conversation literally at the
You're
end
making
of
me sweat, Jane.
Yeah, sorry, Kat. Tom, I can see you've got your hand up. You just pop yourself off mute.
Right, hi.
Hi.
Thank you very much for all of this. A couple of comments on the very last point about where are all the WM patients. I recently asked my GP whether there was anybody else with WM within the practice. And I was quite surprised to find there was, bearing in mind with forever knowing and saying it's rare. I've yet to manage because of patient confidentiality, etc., but I will carry on down that route. So it's just a suggestion that if everybody asks their GP and then let you in the centre know, at least you'd have another dot on the map, even if you don't actually know who they are at that stage.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that, Tom. That would be hugely helpful. It's every little piece of the jigsaw helped. So,
Yeah.
you know, that was great.
My other point was that there are quite a lot of us, as you know, not on Facebook or Insta or Twitter. So just really a plea for carrying on the email group in terms of communicating, because there's quite a lot of us in that position.
And I share your view on that, Tom, and I only go on to look at our groups, but I am with you in the world of let's communicate by email. So I know very much when obviously some conversations happen, which, you know, we don't lead on social media, but if ever we communicate anything, and I think I'm right in saying this, Louisa, is it's on the website, it goes as an email, and then it goes on various social media, but we put it out in all forms. Is that right? Am I right? Yeah. Okay. Has anyone else got their hand up? I can't see everybody, or is that it for now? Okay. Right.
Ronald has said, I think you just missed one, says, what plans have you got to increase awareness of WMUK in Scotland?
Well, I can't see you, Ronald, but okay. So we've just started working more closely with Catherine Ogilvie, who's a consultant in Scotland. Again, when I talked about CAB earlier and sort of having that clinician's voice, historically it's been quite London-centric, or certainly quite Southern-centric, and it's been really important to me that the UK is totally reflected. So we've worked across all the regions, but Catherine is someone who's such a ambassador for WM. And so we're going to work more closely with her to understand what are the real issues in Scotland and how, again, and happy to be informed by patients on the ground, how we best promote our services in Scotland. I guess at the moment our tactics are kind of the same as England, which is about doing the desk work, making the contacts, reaching out to people, sending out leaflets, building up relationships. But if there's a quicker, smarter way that we could be doing that, please share. Yeah, and that's the same for Wales, and it's the same for Northern Ireland. Truly trying to ensure that, you know, we are WMUK, so all regions. We're not just concentrating, if you like, where the sort of WM centres of expertise are. In fact, it's really important that we go out into those areas where there's more need. And something I've just thought of that I meant to say earlier as well is, I think it was Kat mentioned patient advisory group we're going to set up. What's an advisory group? Well, really, it's just a group of patients who we're going to go, we're thinking of doing this, or we want to do that, or does this make sense to you, etc. And we need your view, and we also need your view to say, actually, you should be thinking about this. And I guess that group represents, if you like, the broader community of patients. just to say on anything like that, whether we go, do you want to be a patient representative on a committee? Do you want to join the advisory group? You don't need any relevant experience, right? Please don't feel that you either need to have a medical background, a scientific background, have worked in a charity, you know, whatever it is, you don't. You alone and your experience of having WM qualified you. And the broader cross section, I think we can get of WM patients involved, whether that's by treatments, whether that's by how long you've had WM, where you are in your treatment journey, your age, your demographic. Want to include everybody and get a real cross section of views. So it's just to say, if ever you see anything where we're appealing for patients to be involved, just you is enough. Don't feel you need to have a special skill. Okay, so have I got any more questions, or should I just do a quick 10 minutes on data and why it's really important and where we're at?
I think that was it. Yeah, I can't see any more in the chat.
Okay, so let's do a quick 10 minutes on this then. And I'm just on the outset, and this is on our website page as well. When I talk about data, what I'm really just talking about is information. I'm talking about information about patients with WM. Now, that might be clinical information that, you know, your medical team might hold. It might be quality of life information, where at the moment some people fill in the PROMS questionnaire, which you can get through the registry, or it might just be we talk to you, we get anecdotal information, or we do a focus group, or we do a survey, or whatever it is. When I talk about data, it's just information. Why is it really important that you share your information? Because that's what's going to make things better for you. Because the only way we're going to improve access to care, in not being a postcode lottery over how quickly you get diagnosed, what treatment you go on, what treatment options you have, getting more treatments approved and giving you a bigger range of treatments. The only way I'm going to be able to do that is like absolutely what I need is share your information. The bit we've all just spoken about really for me is the living well with WM. It's the support side, it's the information side, it's the empowering you, it's, you know, helping you have a life that is good for you with WM. This bit that we're talking about now is going, actually, how do we get more treatments? How do we understand more about the disease? How do we understand why you relapse, when you relapse? What's the best treatment to give you at that point? Is this treatment better than that treatment? And all those questions that are really important. So I've touched on that really we don't have this sort of UK map of WM. We are building it and we're getting more informed all the time. I am always astounded by the foresight of Rory Morrison, who you know, allowed us to set up the Rory Morrison registry in his name. I don't know if this is the next slide or not, Louisa. But when I talk about RMR, it's the Rory Morrison registry. And what's the registry? Just think again of the registry. It's a massive database, right? It's a massive database of patient information. All that information, by the way, is anonymized. So I know sometimes people go, I don't want to share my information because I don't want some marketing company phoning me at 8 o'clock every night or whatever it is. It's anonymized. It's all anonymized, but putting all that clinical information into that registry allows researchers who are working on new treatments or are looking at how do we improve care, how do we improve outcomes. It's that kind of data they need. And in us having that data and building on what the legacy that Rory created, actually also allows us to raise more money by charging for that data analysis to companies, which can then come back to WM patients. So when I talk about data and data strategy, I'm talking about basically how we're going to get more information. And we have 3 strands to doing that. One is the Rory Morrison registry that most of you might know. And that's where at the moment we have about 28 hospitals signed up to putting their WM patients' data into the registry. So we're trying to get more hospitals signed up to it. But as well as the hospital saying yes, you as a patient can say to your consultant, I'd really like my WM data to go into the registry. Can you contact WMUK, please? And there is a process because the hospital has to sign off on lots of data, protection policies, etc. But you can make it happen from the ground too. So we're trying to get more stuff in there. In the NHS, every time somebody is admitted with WM or treated around WM, it's called episodic data. It's called HES, just call it HES data. Anything to do with WM and associated conditions, all that data already exists in the NHS. We're trying to, some of you may know Charles Lilly. Charles has a huge background in IT and particularly in the NHS, trying to get all that data from the NHS also into our registry. So then we have all of that. Alongside that, we're trying to improve the quality of life survey that you fill in because it's not great. It wasn't made for WM patients. We're trying to get a WM specific one, so that's better. And alongside that, we want to start collecting real world data. Touched on this at the summit for those of you who were there. This is the wearable tech. I'm really sorry that conversation was in November and it's now June. There's a lot of hoops to jump through for you to be able to have wearable tech that you can use the data from. But you will see in the next month or so of starting to say, if you would like to volunteer to wear, when I say wearable tech, it's a watch. It looks like a watch. You don't have to charge it. You don't have to take it off. You don't have to take it off when you're in the shower. You don't have to press a button. You don't have to upload data. It does it all magically. What you do at the beginning is give your consent as a patient for it to take data from you. And at any point, you can take that consent away and say, no, no more. But if we can collect that real world data alongside all of this, we are going to massively improve our understanding of the disease, enable far more research, and most importantly, when drugs come up for approval at NICE, at SMC, we're going to have the data that they need to help them make a decision that says yes. Because in the past, we haven't been able to give them the right data. And part of that is also we haven't been in on the conversation early enough. But the whole point of this is we need to understand what's happening to you, whether you're on treatment, whether you're on active monitoring. I know those of you on active monitoring, a lot of you will say, I don't want to think about my WM while I'm on active monitoring. Honestly, you won't need to. Just wear this watch. Don't need to do anything with it. Don't think about having WM, just wear this watch. Because when you do need it, by wearing that watch, that data, that information you've shared is really going to help. Because actually treatments might have moved on then. We might understand the disease better. We might know why you've relapsed. So a whole other bit of the organisation is about trying to make patient outcomes better by getting more data and getting you more treatments. But the only way we can do that is by you sharing your information. So there will be something coming out in the next couple of weeks about the first stage of this, because essentially we're doing a pilot study. We need like 150 patients who are prepared to wear this watch, share data with us, which will give us a snapshot of what it's like to live with WM in 2023. And there'll be some metrics in that. And by that, I mean, like, what are the things we're going to measure? It might be, I don't know, quality of sleep, fatigue, heart rate, blood pressure, whatever they are. Those will be decided by the committee who's working around this project, which will have medical people in it, data people in it, input from us, input from patients. I will need a patient representative on this too. We agree what we're going to measure, we measure it. At the end of the year, we go, right, this is what we found. And in that snapshot, what comes out of that, I think, will inform more research. But then we're also going to roll that pilot study into a much bigger study where we're going to aim to hopefully have like 400 patients. And when we start collecting real world data, that's what it's called, when you're just collecting what's happening to you every day on that scale, alongside the clinical data that we're getting, alongside the NHS data that we're getting, you put all that together, data people do their magic, and you get a longitudinal record, which means, right, from the first interaction with your GP to right now, Jane Nicholson, what does your record look like? Because WM is a disease that you live with for a long time. So it's really important that we have that longitudinal view. And if Charles Lilly was here, who's our trustee, who's driving the data side of things, he would also say to you, one of the things we're going to do is really important that you can also see those records and you can check them, because Charles himself didn't have a diagnosis of WM on his medical records. So quite often his view is medical records are also not correct. So it's really important that patients can see it so they can also flag things as well. So that's what we're trying to do on the other side of the organisation. As well as support you, we're trying to collect and create this platform to enable far more research around WM to happen and more treatments to come forward, because that's the only way we're going to be able to do it. And Louisa, I've probably talked through all my slides there without saying next slide. Let me just whiz and check if there's anything that I have missed in that. I'm going to come back to the app. Yeah, just go next one, Louisa.
Done that as well.
Okay, so there was just a breakdown in that, which essentially also says we set up the Rory Morrison registry in 2016. In that time, it's grown organically, but no one's managed it day to day, and it's not had any further investment in it. So what we're doing now, the data strategy, everything that we want to do over the next 2 years is going to cost about £850,000. We've so far raised about 400,000 of that. So we can start work on reinvesting in the Rory Morrison registry, updating it, put lots more functionality in it. For example, like one of the things we can do for a lot of you, you know, your consultant, you might be the only WM case that they've seen, or just one of two. Someone like Shirley, who's in UCL, you know, that's what she does every day. And you have to travel to either get a second opinion or to get expertise or everything that's involved with that. The registry allows us to almost run like a virtual MDT. So an MDT is when all the group of medical experts get together and discuss your case. Your doctor at a local hospital can submit your case, discuss it with the experts virtually, gather all their expertise and come back to you. So then it means as a patient, what we're actually doing is disseminating all that knowledge, because there's lots of little pockets of huge expertise in WM, but it's not broadly spread. And that's another thing that we're trying to do. So just huge back investment going in the registry, everything that I've spoken about. And also we're working with Beijing on developing a patient app. Again, whether we like it or not, the world is going more digital. The management of healthcare is going to go more digital. Lots of you already might be experiencing more of your appointments are virtual or on Zoom or on the phone than they are face-to-face. Lots of you might have to use the NHS app or various hospital apps to navigate your way around. I know lots of you make diaries, have spreadsheets, have whatever it is on lots of pieces of paper. This is what's going on with me. And when you go and see your doctor, it's kind of like, right, what can I remember to say? What's in my notebook? How much can I fit into 7 minutes? And what we want to do with the app is literally have that. So it's all online. So when you go and see your consultant, you can go, do you know what? Here, this is what life has been like for me between the last 3 months that I've seen you. And it's in a way that's consistent and that they can get the most out of it and you can get the most out of it in managing your disease. So there's lots more to say around that, but I'm conscious of time and I don't want to just talk at you. But I guess I just wanted to get across that, again, I think at the moment we're really punching above our weight in terms of what we're doing around the research side. And I think evidence of that is we're pulling together a whole clinical trials catalogue, but typically, you know, for those of you who aren't familiar with the world of clinical trials, a trial will be designed. It will kind of be designed by the pharma company and clinicians because they want to solve a certain medical problem. There isn't particularly patient involvement in that. It doesn't look at, well, actually, what are the real treatment needs for patients right now? What's important to them? What will be important for them to solve? What voice do they have around that? And the whole thing would run and run and run. Lots of trials fall over because they don't recruit enough patients. And at the end of it, they might have a drug that they want approval for. And at the very end, they'll say, WMUK, can you put a patient expert forward for NICE because we want to try and get this drug approved. What we're actually doing now is starting to be involved in the design of clinical trials and to have a patient voice in that. And I can't tell you like how groundbreaking and exciting that is for me personally, because that's the stuff that's really going to change things long term. If you as patients can start to have a voice in the trials that are being designed to meet your needs and your treatment needs, then that's the game changer. And we've achieved that already for a clinical trial that's currently at protocol stage for a treatment that they hope will come for approval like 3 years down the line. So we just need to continue on that path and replicate it. But almost so much has happened in the last 2 years. I'm kind of struggling to fit it all into an hour for you, but I just wanted to get a sense across to you, I think, of how hard everybody is working. And I think in focused ways that, as Kat's mentioned, will absolutely measure and evaluate, so we can say, actually, we are having an impact. It looks like this. Because of this, we've improved that. People will hopefully want to invest in us. We get sustainable funding, and actually what we create is long-term change, which I think kind of takes me to my last slide, Louisa, which was about change. Skip that one. This one, really. I think that sort of sums it up. It's patients first, it's been collaborative, it's making an impact, it's challenging the status quo, and it's addressing the injustices and the inequities that currently sit around WM. And that really, for me, is what we all do every day, just in slightly different ways. So that's the end of me talking at you. I hope that's made some sense. I hope that's been helpful. I hope, for all of you, you know who we are now, you know where we are. You feel that we're approachable, that you can, you don't always have to be in crisis, in need information. We're always available to listen to good ideas, to thoughts, to feedback, to something you've seen, to something you think we could be doing better, or you just want to know more about what's going on. But that's us, really. So any other questions around that side, or in general, or comments? Have I missed anything, Kat? Have we covered all the...
I think you got everything.
Yeah.
Can't see any questions. Oh, 1 minute, something's just popped up. No, thank you, just really nice comments. Thank you, guys.
And just so that I've just quickly seen please don't forget you have a group of avid viewers who live in Germany. Just to give you a shout out, the work that we are doing with IWMF is to really understand the needs of all WM patients across Europe. And I'm sure within that there will be some shared agenda, shared priorities of things that matter to all WM patients. And we'll be collecting evidence to then take that and do some advocacy work and say, look, this is how we want things to change, in Europe for WM patients. So you're not forgotten, you are part of that. But also, just to refer you to my point earlier, we're working really closely with IWMF. So hopefully a lot of our support stuff that you might have seen already, you'll start to see more of in Europe. Okay, well, thank you everybody for your time tonight. Really appreciate it. I think we're pretty much just finishing on time. If I finish, oh no, 15 minutes over, there's a surprise. Okay, well, thanks for sticking with us. Really appreciate your time, and lovely to see everyone tonight. Thank you.